Socrates had a demon. Of course, a daimon, but a demon. I'm reading Plato again after, 45 years, and I just thought I'd share the fact that Socrates was a demoniac. Well, maybe not, but maybe. I've got the complete works, 1,800 pages, and I'll go through it over the next few months. I, I spent probably 20 minutes whiting out the loopy girl writing with which some Deb had defaced a number of the pages, with hearts for eye dots and that sort of thing. It was intolerable. I don't mind the pink highlighting, but the girl writing was all over the margins, and that was too much. She read she read only the Apology and books 1, 2, 3, and 5 of the Republic. So it wasn't too bad. I didn't like the Republic the first time I read it, but that was in the 70s, and this is the 20s. 23 skidoo. So maybe it got better, the Republic. I mean, Plato's Republic. Our Republic. Carter, Biden. It's really not. It's like comparing Buchanan with Biden. There's just no comparison. Biden, worst president ever. In the Apology, Socrates' defense at his trial, he speaks of how he's always had an inner voice that told him not to do anything wrong. So he always knew he was doing right because he obeyed the voice of his familiar, like shaman, like a witch. He had a familiar. Now, you might not call that a demon, but he does. Daimon. They're not the same thing, but maybe. He was accused of atheism, denying the gods of Athens while introducing other gods, and of corrupting the youth of the city. I won't go into that. He affirms his belief in the city's gods, and he denies the corruption. Frankly, he proves his case, but he'd made very many enemies, what with constantly proving how not wise everyone else was, and the majority of his jury consisted of such people. It was a close vote. Out of the 500 jurymen, a shift of 30 votes would have acquitted him. Yeah, 221 to 279. 30 votes difference. Flip it. The vote was corrupt. This was not justice. He did prove his case. He was innocent according to the evidence that Plato gives. In the next dialogue along, Crito comes as a friend and wants Socrates to escape. Socrates uses his method and demonstrates how he has no choice but to obey the verdict and die. And here's why I'm saying this. It's not that Socrates has a demon. It's that his logic is wrong. Yes, I, so humble, am smarter than Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. After nearly 2,500 years, I shall bring light. First, Socrates gets Crito to agree that it's always wrong to harm someone, even if they harm you. And this is true. Then again, it's not. What is harm? It involves motive and justice, like surgeons or cutthroats. They're both cutting. Socrates is not against justice and not against punishment. He argues for it. Punishment that corrects a wrongdoer is actually a good, a painful good. Punishment that does not correct hurts only and is a harm to the recipient. It may be good for the city, good for justice, good for the gods, but it is harm to the victim. True? Yet the greater good is that justice be done, regardless of its effect on the person punished. So it is not wrong to harm someone if they harm you, as here described. It's justice. Next, Socrates demonstrates that the citizen must obey the laws. To break the law is to destroy the city. We would say it violates the social contract, and he is correct. Then again, he's not. To break a law is not to destroy the law. It is an insult, a disrespect, but not an annihilation. To disrespect a parent is not to kill a parent. If he planned to run away, the state personified would come to him and say, "Do you not, by this action you are attempting, intend to destroy us, the laws, and indeed the whole city? Or do you think it possible for a city not to be destroyed if the verdicts of the courts have no force, but are nullified and set to naught by private individuals?" If his reply were, "The courts have wronged me," the return reply would be, "Was that the agreement, or was it to respect the judgments?" Contracts must be obeyed, and Socrates is right. Then again, he's not. Here we need to get philosophical. What if the city is taken over and ruled by a tyrant, and the tyrant, whose word is the law, arbitrarily condemns? The contract is to obey the law, and thus here to causen tyranny? What if it's not a tyrant, but a corrupt jury? Socrates had a corrupt jury. Is the citizen's contract with the law, or is it with justice? Is it right to be complicit in the city's corruption of justice and of the meaning of law? What is law for? What does it protect? Stability and power only, or does it protect what is good, what is right and just and beautiful? Well, it's only law, the product of politicians. But there is an ideal behind this sad fact that is the inspiration of what a society is, the communal striving for the greater good. Innocent people may be sacrificed for a greater good. A corrupt jury acting out of spite and committing judicial murder is not that. Socrates says, one must obey the laws of one's city and country, or persuade it as to the nature of justice. To persuade, one needs opportunity, which may require time. Socrates complains in his Apology that by law he had not enough time to properly defend himself. There is an illogic here. He is required to persuade, but not given what is needed to do so. The law requires what it forbids. Why doesn't this most clear-sighted of men see this? If the city were at war, and Socrates believed the war was unjust, if he yet agreed to fight, he must do so, or he could refuse and protest and attempt to dissuade the city from war, and if not convincing, he must accept the consequences, most likely of death. He must be true either to his agreement or to his conscience. Neither is shameful. To refuse to fight and refuse to accept the consequences would be reprehensible. Likewise, Socrates agreed to obey the law and to accept the consequences if he didn't, yet he had an obligation not only to obey the law, but to protect the city. He must do what he could to keep his city just, to keep it from committing injustice, to keep it from spilling innocent blood, in this case his own. That, after all, was why there was a curse and a plague on Thebes. The gods were displeased with the unknown crimes of Oedipus. The obligation of Socrates was to not allow an innocent man's blood to pollute the earth and curse his city. That it was his own blood was irrelevant. The truest argument Socrates makes is that it's not the laws, but the men who wrong him, so he should obey the laws. But by obeying the law, he is harming the men, by making them guilty of wronging him. And it is wrong to cause harm to those who harm you. Socrates is not being Socratic with himself. He does it so well, usually. I wonder what's up. He wanted to die, and no argument could have changed this. At his trial, he was given a voice to choose his own punishment, and he chose free meals for life, the appropriate response for his actions. His accusers urged death. In Crito, Socrates admits he could have suggested exile, life. He talks about how ridiculous his life would be as an exile. But what has ridicule to do with the conduct of a righteous man? Why is public opinion a factor now when it never mattered to him before? Irrelevant, inconsistent, and illogical. Odd. Given the two posited choices, his multiple enemies chose the one that was, a punishment. Socrates arranged his death, conspired in it, a good defense, and if he didn't get the justice he wanted the greatest injustice. That does not seem moderate. It's not that his demon, in its silence, proved the rightness of his course. It's that his demon, as is the wont of subtle evil beings, was truthful until the greatest harm could be done. For over 2,400 years, a catastrophic argument has been supported by the authority of a man who was correct in almost everything. Scores of millions of people have been murdered by totalitarian states because of the error that Socrates made. The citizen is not the property of the state.